Welcome to Trade Secrets, Remodeling with Neri, the show where we help remodelers build stronger, more professional, and more successful businesses. I'm Anthony Lopez, Director of Business Development at the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. On this show, we talk with leaders across the remodeling industry to share practical insights you can actually apply to your business. Today, I'm joined by Bob Vance, CEO and founder of Homeowner SEO and a Neri industry partner. Bob has spent years helping remodeling companies improve their online visibility and attract better clients. I personally love his approach as he is the farthest thing from a salesman and genuinely wants to help the industry. In this episode, we're talking about how remodelers can win online today, what's changed in search, what still works, and where contractors should actually be focusing their time. So Bob, before we get into tactics here, can you please just give us a quick overview of your background and your thought process around building your business, Remodeler SEO?
Sure, Anthony, and thanks again for having me on your podcast here with Neri. Looking forward to being able to share some insights. My history really goes back to growing up working in my father's flooring business. So I was exposed to the contracting world, if you will, working with my pops. But I've always been a computer geek. I bought a computer back in the mid '80s when only Steve Jobs was talking about computers back then, and I've just really loved, playing around on it. But still, followed the path of going into contracting. I used to do remodeling. I was doing fix and flips, owned some apartments. And I've also been a developer on $1 million custom homes here in the Denver area as well. So, contracting is in my blood, but I think also being a computer geek is kind of in my blood as well. And with the 2008 recession is kind of where I made my pivot to really try to help remodelers and builders become better marketers. I understood the industry more so. I understood the buying cycle, and I understood computers and what it really took to succeed online. And so my whole impetus really was to help companies build their brand, to truly build a brand online and not to chase one strategy after another. And, here I am 16 years later, going strong with Home Remodeler SEO and working with great remodelers and builders and home improvement companies all across the country from coast to coast now.
Yeah, you hit on a point there too, as far as, kind of what remodelers need today and kind of trying to help them. We talked about it a little bit on the last podcast of just, how much professionalism really kind of matters today. We know that remodelers are great craftspeople and they're really good at that thing. But when it comes to maybe some operations or some systems put in place, they can struggle there a little bit. And so happy to have you on to kind of talk about, some different tactics that you've used. But from your perspective, what's changed the most in how homeowners are searching for and choosing remodelers today? When they're looking for their projects and looking for somebody to complete those, what's really changed the most?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of people think there's a lot change and other people think not so much changes. I think right now most remodelers really think that they're competing when the homeowner calls them, that's when the competition begins. They have to be better than the other remodeler on the phone. And the reality is the competition for your services began at least a few weeks ago, if not longer. And what I mean by that is people are searching on Google for longer periods of time and looking for more in-depth info when it comes to the contractors that they're choosing to work with, that they're choosing to call and have a consultation with. And so that run up to before you even get to call, that's where things are most important for you. Are you showcasing your brand in the right light, the light that you want to cast upon your company? Do you have great reviews that not only speak to your quality craftsmanship, your customer service, but they're social proof for everyone else out there? Is your website credible? Are you talking more about the process and how you work? Or are you like every other remodeler, not differentiating themselves by having, a unique selling proposition, that USP that really helps you stand out from the other remodelers? Those are the remodelers and builders and home improvement contractors out there that are going to get the calls because you're standing out out online, you're unique, and you've positioned yourself professionally and across many different platforms as well. That's one of the mistakes that I see people making is maybe ignoring social media because it's not necessarily a lead generation platform. It's more about brand awareness. But if someone finds you on Google and they look at your website, maybe they look at reviews, maybe they look at some other listings, but then they go to social media and you're not showing up, or your Facebook feed is a ghost town, that kind of knocks you down in the homeowner's eyes of how professional and how complete of an organization that you really are. So it's really that multi-platform approach. We like to call it in our company omnipresence, being seen everywhere and anywhere that you can. And that is what equates to building a brand, to having a strategy, and not just buying leads or showing up here or there. Is really the focus is being omnipresence. Be everywhere that your customers are looking for you.
Got it. So if your recommendation is to almost be omnipresent, where do you think contractors or remodelers often waste money when it comes to digital marketing, if that is a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's many ways they can waste money. One of the biggest is treating marketing like a light switch that you can turn on and off. You can't just ramp up and ramp down and ramp up and ramp down based on your busy season. You really have to put effort into marketing. Marketing is something you do for the basically the life of your business. You don't throw a billboard up for 30 days and expect that that's your marketing for the rest of your business life cycle. And so it's the same way with whether you're doing SEO, search engine optimization, or maybe pay-per-click, Google pay-per-click, or maybe using Facebook ads. You can't just turn these on and off. You've got to give them time to gel and for the algorithms to learn. And they assign you a quality score. How well are your ads performing? How well do they answer your homeowners' questions? Are you using landing pages? That's where I see remodelers and home improvement contractors going wrong as well, is they're not using landing pages properly or not using them at all. And an example of that, Anthony, would be running Google ads and running them to the homepage of your website. And that's where people get lost in your website, and then maybe they watch a video, and next thing you know, they're over on YouTube, and now they're watching cat videos. That's where you lose people. You want to keep them on your page, and so that's why you use landing pages. It specifically addresses the ad that they're clicking on. So if they're looking for a kitchen remodel, they're looking at a page that's built around kitchen remodeling, and then you would have a different landing page that might speak to ADUs or home additions. So you need to be using landing pages strategically, and they need to be very specific to the type of service that you're advertising for. So that's where I see a lot of folks going wrong there. Other quick nuggets are your website. Again, I talked about, are you showcasing the process and who you are and how you work with clients, or are you just saying that we're the best remodeler out there because you've got reviews and you won an award or something? People really want to know what it's going to be like to work with you, what that process is going to be like, and being able to look at case studies online, not just project photos, which I see a lot of folks don't have enough of those even, but case studies that talk about a specific story where you helped homeowners bring their vision to life. And you talked about the process and how that whole story unfolded, because people see themselves inside of stories. That's why storytelling, story branding is so important in marketing, because people can see themselves in that story. That's what you're trying to do, is paint that picture for them. So I would love to see a lot more project photos and specifically case studies from remodelers and builders out there. That will really help your marketing budget go a lot further. You're going to actually get qualified leads from that instead of just spending money randomly and trying to see what sticks, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because they do such great work, and going inside somebody's home, like to remodel their home, is like, it's a very intimate venture, and it's something that these homeowners are taking their time as far as selecting who they're letting inside of their home, right? It's You're around the family, you're around the dog. And so, talking about your brand and you mentioned earlier being omnipresent, but like, there's so many opportunities, I think, for these remodelers, especially for these established remodelers in these certain communities, to go ahead and get that content and to really showcase like what that process is going to look like by working with them. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I think one other thing too, Anthony, that it's worth mentioning is responsiveness is a form of marketing nowadays. And so that's something that's starting to really show up a lot more in marketing, is just how well are you responding and how well are you following up. Those are key mistakes that I see a lot of remodelers making. They follow up once or twice, they don't hear back, and then they think, oh, okay, they must have went with someone else. And that usually isn't the case, because typically, we're talking about big purchasing decisions here, kitchens that might cost $100 or more, major remodel renovations that could cost several $100,000 or, $2 million custom homes. These are not decisions that are made lightly. They take time. And so having that follow up in place, that is a form of marketing, what we call sales follow up. You can call it lead nurture. You can call it just good old fashioned doing business the right way. And that's following up with people, send them case studies, send them photos. Every now and then just reach out with a phone call that says, hey, you guys still thinking about that remodel? Do you have any questions on the plan that I put together for you? Would you like to sit down with another consult and go over stuff in more detail? That extra outreach, that extra follow-up is really what's going to make the difference in whether you get a couple extra jobs in a year or you don't. And for the size of these jobs, you might only need 2 or 3 extra. And so if you work a little harder in that follow-up and nurturing those leads across the finish line, it's going to make a big difference in your bottom line revenue for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking about some of our Remodeler of the Year award winners, and you've got different categories, and kitchen from 100,000 to 150,000, and yeah, you're 100% right. It's a huge decision. It's a huge financial decision. It's and otherwise environmental too. So it's not. I think you and I have talked about this before. It's not, you're not annoying somebody by following up, right? We're living in this world where we're constantly distracted by a million different things. And I can't tell you how many times I've, reached out to somebody, multiple times and they say, oh, thank you. I appreciate you just sticking on it. And it's not the annoying, you don't get the annoyed response. I don't see that often. It's just, we're so distracted. You got to stay on top of it. And I love that point of almost treating like responsiveness as part of your marketing, right?
Yeah. You spend, remodelers, builders, home improvement contractors, you spend so much money, thousands of dollars trying to generate qualified leads. And then, you send them to a website that's not well optimized, or you send them to a landing page that isn't built for the service that they're looking for, or you just don't follow up enough. And that's just money wasted. A lot of people like to say, oh, well, that was a bad lead. It wasn't a bad lead. They wanted your services. They came to you initially for your services, and somewhere you lost them. And so that's where I think just taking a little more accountability, saying, what can we be doing better? Where could we split test something and see if it works better? And like you said, people, it's not that they don't want to hear from you. They get busy. Life is so busy nowadays. Everyone's, dual income families, both people are working and the kids and pets and everything else going on in life. People just get busy. If they don't want to hear from you, they'll typically let you know. They'll unsubscribe, or they'll just say, we've found another contractor. Thank you for following up, whatever they might say. But if you're not hearing that, they probably have not moved forward, based on just personal decisions with their family or the economy or, whatever might be going on. So it behooves you to reach out and just put them into a natural sequence of emails, text, phone follow-up, what we call a campaign workflow that doesn't require you to do it manually. It just, most of it happens, 80% of it, 90% of it happens automatically. And that's using technology, that's using AI to work smarter, not harder. And that's where a lot of people, I think, can benefit from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tying in again to that, our previous episode about professionalism and bringing that into the remodeling industry. I go to the dentist and I get a text and they tell me, here's when your appointment is scheduled, and we put it on your calendar, and it's all very seamless. And there's no reason why, we can't bring a little bit of that into the remodeling industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Most are old school and they come from the contracting background. They didn't go to business school or marketing school or any of that. So, sometimes it's a little bit of teaching old dogs new tricks, but old dogs can indeed learn new tricks. And it's just trying to, you're competing against everyone out there. So you can be one of those that decides to say, hey, I'm going to keep my Razor flip phone from 1992 because it's cool, or you think it's cool. Or you can say, you know what, I'm gonna get with the modern era, and I'm gonna get an iPhone or a BlackBerry or whatever people are using. I don't use the analog phones. I'm an iPhone guy, but you have to get with the technology. And if other people are doing it and gaining an advantage, then you need to make that conscious decision. Am I going to do that and have that same advantage? Or am I going to say, no, that's not the way I do it. I'm old school. Old school means you're probably going to get left behind at the pace that technology is advancing at nowadays, especially with AI.
Absolutely. No, 100%. So we talked a little bit about, some of these things that, remodelers could be paying attention to and looking at, regarding landing pages, your responsiveness, things like that. But if there was somebody that was starting from scratch, right, that's not established, doesn't have many case studies to even go off of, where should they focus first regarding marketing or digital marketing more specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question, Anthony. You can really be all over the board when it comes to marketing, and you can become overwhelmed with the information. I think the best lead source out there is your Google business profile. It's best for many reasons. One, it's free. So, you can't beat free marketing. It really showcases your business. You're allowed to, you put all your services there, the areas you serve. You can showcase all your project photos, before and afters. You can upload videos, videos on site of you walking a site, videos of a project being finished, even a customer testimonial video. And then, of course, you've got all those reviews and those, 5 gold stars that pop up. That's what catches most people's eye on page 1 of Google. It is generally attributed to being responsible for about 2/3 of all phone calls go to one of those Google business profile listings, what we call the 3-pack when it's on page 1. If you open and expand it, then you get 20 results. But if you're one of those 3 companies in that Google Maps section, that is your Google business profile right there. That's going to be the most bang for your buck. And not only just optimizing it one time when you set it up, but make sure you keep doing that stuff on a consistent basis. I like to say that consistency beats brilliance in marketing every day of the week. Just being consistent. And that's everything. Uploading photos consistently on a weekly basis, putting Google posts out there that maybe link to a blog then that you've written on your website, or maybe it links over to a social media post, trying to interlink those so that platforms are talking to each other and they know that they're related. And then getting reviews on a consistent basis. It's really important because a lot of companies will not get reviews very consistently at all, and that's a problem. But some will do like a big blast, and they'll go out and get 20 reviews in a couple weeks by just blasting everyone they know. And then after that, then it's back to crickets again, and there's no reviews. And so Google doesn't like that kind of up and down sine wave of review attribution. They want to see reviews coming in on a consistent basis, just like they want to see stories being told on a consistent basis, posts going out on a consistent basis, new project photos uploaded on a consistent basis. So that's where I would start and really put your efforts there. And make sure that you're doing everything on a consistent basis and not just like, okay, I set it up. It should be good now, because it will take a lot more effort than that. But that's a good place to start.
Got it. Looking ahead a bit, and this is a massively loaded question, because I know some of the conversations that you and I have had in the past about how much Google Ads changes every day and how your team has to stay on top of that. And that's a little bit more internal, right? That's kind of inside baseball. But how do you see online marketing changing for remodeling businesses in the near future? Obviously, we have this introduction of AI, and to be honest with you, there's so much information out there. The different conferences that I've gone to, there's some good presentations, and then there's just a lot out there. And the notion that I get from talking to some of our members, our remodelers and contractors, is that, and I don't think this is the right thing, but is that it is so much, and there is so much AI slop out there that it's hard to almost to find the good content and know what you want to implement. And so, in essence, there is a group of people, a group of remodelers that are probably not going to adopt that and get and lose a little bit of business because of that, because they're going to get passed by. Kind of what we were talking about earlier. How do you see online marketing changing for remodeling businesses in the future?
Yeah, good question, Anthony. You mentioned AI. I think that's going to obviously change things quite a bit. But I really feel that the remodelers that went online are the ones that are staying visible even when their schedule is full. Because a lot of people start slacking off once they get that full schedule. They're busy. Instead of thinking about growth and hiring and how can we keep building this company, they get, I guess, a little lackadaisical. Oh, schedule's full. I'm good for now. And then they stop putting out content, and they stop building trust and credibility, because I think that's what's really going to dictate success in the future. I mean, obviously AI is going to have a lot of play, but not to, just stay focused on AI. I think where the focus really will be is remodelers that build trust with homeowners. And that kind of goes in line with Google's algorithm acronym, EAT, E-E-A-T, which stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trust. Those are the factors that really stand out for homeowners when they're looking for a remodeler, looking for a builder to do business with. One of the things they're looking for is just to take risk out of the equation. You spoke to it a little bit earlier about professionalism and treating people right, treating their kids right, their pets, their flower beds, their carpet. Taking all these things together is what becomes your idea of professionalism in your company, from the way you answer your phone to how you show up on time or even early to, how you treat someone's home. All of that professionalism is going to be encapsulated in building that trust, building that authority, that credibility that you are the remodeler or builder that someone wants to work with. Not only have they looked at all your project photos, and they see the expertise that you have, the expertise that you've built through experience with those same type of projects. And that is what builds authority and credibility in their mind. And then, of course, now they trust you because they've talked to you, they've read your reviews, they have that social proof, and they truly believe that the process you've described to them, how you're going to work with clients like them, how that process is going to unfold. Now they get a sense of what it's going to be like working with you, and they either have trust in that or they decide to go to someone else. So that's when I spoke to earlier, is making sure that you're really showcasing how you work with people, what that process is going to look like, because it's going to be a big process. It's going to be a very costly investment for homeowners, and you're going to be in their home for weeks, if not months, maybe even longer, depending on the scope of the project. So they really have to feel comfortable with who they're working with, and that is your job to convince them before they even make that first phone call that you are the contractor that is perfect for their project and perfect for what they're looking for.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. I just wanted to get into just some takeaways here, just some things that I kind of wrote down that you had relayed that I think are important for remodelers to know. And so I just want you to say true or false after each of these statements, and you let me know if I'm on. Okay?
Okay.
All right. The first, online visibility builds trust before homeowners ever call you.
That's true.
Okay. Reviews, reputation, and real project content matter more than ever.
More than ever. That's true.
Consistency in marketing often beats complexity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the last one I got for you, A professional online presence supports long-term business growth.
Yes, of course.
Love it. Okay. I'm listening. That's a good thing.
All right. Did I score okay?
Yes, you did. You got 100%.
Awesome.
4 questions too. So great job.
All
But
right.
before we wrap up here, if a remodeler listening today could just take one step to improve their online presence, what would you recommend that they start with? And I know we've talked a little bit about this, but let's say, we got a green remodeler and they just want one easy takeaway that they can go to their laptop today and do.
Yeah, so it's hard to answer that with just one little thing. Obviously, I mentioned really optimizing and take advantage of that Google Business Profile. I think the one thing on top of that you can really add to your website that builds authority, builds credibility, builds trust is that storytelling, visual nature of your website. And what I mean by that is before and after project photos, maybe the ones with a slider in the middle so you can slide back and forth and see what the picture looked like before and what it looks like after. That's a really neat feature. But that storytelling, that those case studies, that's really what's going to help your website, your brand stand out over others. We've worked with remodelers that had almost no lead volume at all. And as soon as we start showcasing and talking about their projects and their project photos, their leads literally double or triple just from doing that. So I think that's really one of the biggest things that you can do is to really showcase your work and showcase how that work unfolds when people are working with your company. That's going to give them a better sense of what it's going to be like to work with you. Yeah,
no, we know that these remodelers do great work, beautiful work. They just need to show people that they do that work.
Yeah, absolutely. Your website, your Google Business Profile, those two things they're the first impression that a homeowner is going to get of your company. So you need to treat it like your digital storefront and try to tell as much of the story about your company, about your people that you can in that limited chance at that first impression.
Love that. Bob, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your insights. I always appreciate talking to you. If you're serious about building a professional remodeling business, please be sure to explore the resources available through the National Association of the Remodeling Industry at NARI.org. And if you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to Trade Secrets, Remodeling with NARI on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, so don't miss future episodes.